Atlanta Business Chronicle welcomes you to the 2020 Decade of Growth, a celebration of the most impactful stories of the last 10 years. Thank you for joining us. Our program will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for the Decade of Growth. Please welcome your hosts from Atlanta Business Chronicle, Market President and Publisher David Rubinger, and Broadcast Editor Crystal Edmondson.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for Atlanta Business Chronicle's Decade of Growth. This event was originally scheduled to be a live celebration in the new Savannah Hall at Zoo Atlanta in March. But as everyone knows, the world came to a screeching halt days before, and now our events have gone virtual. Amid the anxiety, fear, and frustrations of COVID-19 pandemic and social unrest in our city, it is easy to lose perspective on the growth of Atlanta over the past 10 years. We hope that you enjoy a decade of growth as an opportunity to look back on what we've accomplished together, and the chance to look forward to the work that is still left to be done.
Now, prior to the outbreak, Atlanta Business Chronicle produced a special commemorative magazine, A Decade of Growth, in which Chronicle editors and reporters culled all the issues from the past 10 years, looking to find the articles that best represented our economic engine. We're excited to bring this event to you now virtually. Today, we'll unveil the top 10 events. These have been the most influential on Atlanta. Then, you'll hear from 5 newsmakers in a series of short interviews.
Before we dive in, we want to thank our sponsors. They have all stuck with us through these difficult times and helped us pivot to this virtual platform. Atlanta Business Chronicle wants to thank JLL, our title sponsor of Decade of Growth. JLL has been transforming the view of commercial real estate in Atlanta since 1985. JLL helps companies buy, build, occupy, and invest in a variety of assets, including office, industrial, retail, residential, and commercial real estate. And over the past 10 years, JLL is proud to have played a part in many of our top 50 stories like NCR, Mercedes-Benz, and Porsche's headquarters moves, or the Braves' relocation to Cobb County. While JLL looks forward to being a part of shaping the future of real estate in Atlanta, we look forward to its continued partnership in helping to tell the stories of success in the next decade. Our presenting sponsors, Proof of the Pudding and Zoo Atlanta. Zoo Atlanta is celebrating its own special story with the recent opening of an all-new African savanna, and we can't wait to meet in person again to take advantage of Atlanta's newest event space, Savannah Hall, catered exclusively by Proof of the Pudding. Our contributing sponsors, Active Production and Design. Active has always been an integral part of our live productions, and that hasn't changed in the virtual world. This event was produced in partnership with Matt Clauser and his team. And the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. The gardens are back open for visitors following social distancing guidelines. If you haven't been back, They have lots of great events on the calendar, including Orchid Days, now through August 2nd. Additionally, we want to thank our VIP sponsors: Atlanta Capital Bank, Cousins, Ponce City Market, a Jamestown property, Southern Company, Truist, and the WESTSIDE Future Fund.
Now, let's head over to Savannah Hall at Zoo Atlanta to hear a word from Raymond King, President and CEO, and also Hannah Baber. She is Senior Catering Manager for Proof of the Pudding at Zoo Atlanta.
Hi, I'm Raymond King, President and CEO of Zoo Atlanta. We were so looking forward to hosting your event here at the zoo and hope you were as excited about experiencing our new spaces as we were about seeing you. Zoo Atlanta reopened to the public in May with new policies and procedures in place to assure a safe and healthy environment. Likewise, our catering partners at Proof of the Pudding are busy readying protocols so that they're ready to host your socially distanced event when the timing is right. Things at the zoo look a little bit different right now, but there's still a tremendous amount to see, including a brand new African savanna, complete with a new southern white rhino. So whether it's visiting with family and friends or attending an event at the zoo, we hope to see you here soon. In the meantime, best wishes for a great event.
Hi, my name is Hannah Baber, Senior Catering Sales Manager with Proof of the Pudding at Zoo Atlanta. This stunning new event space opened a couple of months ago and features amazing built-in AV features as well as an amazing view of our African savanna with elephants, giraffes, zebra, and more. For any additional information, please reach out to us at specialevents@zooatlanta.org. We hope to see you soon.
Well, now it's time to reveal the most impactful stories of the past decade as voted on by Atlanta Business Chronicle staff. Following the video, we'll interview several influential leaders and hear firsthand how their stories have shaped their organizations and what's in store for the future as we look ahead to the next decade.
There's no doubt that each of these stories had a tremendous impact on Atlanta and the surrounding area over the past 10 years. I am sure many of the viewers today will be able to find a personal connection to many of them. So now, let's reveal from the decade of growth the top 10 most impactful stories. Congratulations to everyone that was part of the top 10 stories and to all the story makers.
Seeing that video really brings a sense of nostalgia for the past 10 years.
Especially after the last 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, next, we're going to sit down with 5 of our newsmakers. They were kind enough to join us via a Zoom call.
My first interview is with Penny McPhee, President and Director of the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation. Penny directs the foundation's strategic focus on fostering opportunities for children and youth and enhancing the quality of life in Atlanta and beyond. The foundation invests in education, parks and green space, youth development, community redevelopment, and the arts, and leads giving programs for each of the Blank family of businesses. Penny McPhee, President of the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation, thank you for being part of A Decade of Growth.
David, thank you for including us. On behalf of Arthur and his family and the Family Foundation and all of our businesses, we are honored to be part of the Decade of Growth. It's been an amazing decade for us.
It really has, and we could not have done the Decade of Growth without including all of the amazing organizations, philanthropy that Arthur Blank has been associated with in our city, whether it's revolving around sports, physical structures, or communities. Arthur Blank's name has been across all of it over and over and over again on our Decade of Growth list. So take me back to 2010 for a minute. And what was going on at the foundation? What was the thinking, and what did the forecast look like for the 10 years?
Well, you'll remember in 2010, we were coming out of the worst recession the country has been in since the Great Depression. But Arthur always looks to the future, and he had in his eye the glimmer of a new stadium. You'll also remember that at that time, the only businesses were the Atlanta Falcons and his ranch in Montana. There was no Atlanta United, there was no stadium, there was no PGA Tour superstores. So it was a different environment. He already was thinking about soccer. He already was thinking about a new stadium. And he knew that he wanted to stay in downtown Atlanta. That was really important to him. So in 2010, he and Rich McKay and I were starting to do the due diligence around a location in the West Side, near the Georgia Dome. And I remember one of the pivotal moments for us was that the three of us went to meet with the late Reverend Cameron Alexander, Reverend of the Antioch Baptist Church, to talk about the West Side, because Arthur said from the very, very, very beginning, I am not going to build an iconic stadium on one side of the street and have disinvested neighborhoods on the other side of the street. So from the very beginning, he was thinking about not just the stadium, but the whole landscape. And when we met with Reverend Alexander told us what really became the foundation of our work. He said, you can't just build buildings on the West Side. You need to build human capital. Well, that was transformational for us, because that meant that we could do what was already in the foundation's sweet spot: education, youth development, health and wellness, all of the things that the foundation already had a reputation for. But we knew that there also had to be physical development, that there were blighted buildings everywhere, blighted houses everywhere. And driving through that area was just heartbreaking. So we knew that there were going to have to be partners and partnerships, and that there was no way that we could make transformational change by ourselves, but we could lead. And that from 2010 is what we've tried to do.
So it started off with the foundation itself seeding the capital, if you will, for helping on the West Side, which was all an internal move. And then the decision was made to then create the West Side Future Fund. Tell me about that process, about how you went through that process of then adding the Future Fund onto what was already in place within the Blank Family Foundation.
So when we created our internal fund, which was called the WESTSIDE Neighborhood Prosperity Fund, Arthur committed right from the get-go $15 million. But we knew that $15 million was a fraction of the need. And we knew that we needed to partner with the city. At that time, Kasim Reed was mayor, and he was an outstanding partner to us. And we knew we needed other private investment, because our theory of change was we can seed new investment, but change will really happen when the market takes over. Right. So we had to create the platform for the market to work. And the first thing Arthur did, even before we thought about a broader fund, was he made a commitment, as you know, to hire WESTSIDE residents to help build the new stadium. Once we knew the stadium was a go, and we knew we were going to build it in its current location, we wanted to train and hire residents of the West Side. And that was a big, big effort, because many of the people we trained didn't even have a 6th grade education. So we had to get them ready for training, train them, hire them, teach them the skills, and put them to work. But we put over 300 people to work on building the stadium, which was huge.
Let's talk about the next 10 years. I mean, you've had an amazing 10-year run establishing this foundation, but I feel like some of the hardest work still is left to be done, certainly on the West Side. And then also, what is the Blank Foundation looking to do, not only with the West Side, but in general, to continue on this really great trajectory you've had?
So I think all of the trends are positive on the West Side. We've seen tremendous investment, not just ours, but by many, many others. We've seen important institutions like the Y move to the West Side. Very, very important. The key now for the next 10 years is persistence. People have to stick with it. We can't give up. We've seen progress. There's a lot more need, and all of our investors are going to have to stick with it. So we still have a long way to go in education. We still have a long way to go in affordable housing. The health in the community still is a challenge. But when you drive through the community today, you see lots of new buildings. You don't see the blight that you saw 10 years ago. So you can really see positive change.
And in terms of the Blank organization in general, what are the types of things that you believe Arthur's going to be looking to do in the next 10 years to keep him busy?
Well, you know Arthur, and he is not slowing down. He's got a lot of plans, and the foundation, the family, has just worked on a new strategic plan, and they have some new areas that they're really looking to invest in that we haven't invested in before.
Well, I can't wait for the Business Chronicle to be able to report on all these things as they come about. It's really been exciting for us as an organization to be able to share the news with the Atlanta business community about all the great things you, your team, Mr. Blank, everyone has done. And congratulations on a fantastic 10 years in our decade of growth, and can't wait to see the next 10 years.
Thank you, David. I look forward to continued exciting progress in our city. Thank you.
For our next conversation, I sat down with David Cummings. David is a tech entrepreneur who has founded 10 companies collectively valued at nearly $1 billion. They include Pardot, SalesLoft, and Terminus. David is also the founder of the Atlanta Tech Village, the United States' 4th largest tech hub. Well, David, when I think about the past decade, 10 years is practically an eternity in the technology sector. Can you tell me a little bit about the driving forces behind forming Atlanta Tech Village?
So the Atlanta Tech Village really started out as a way to bring together Atlanta's boutique startup community. So it was a pretty small community, and we wanted to present a way to help our own entrepreneurs. What we quickly found is that there was a tremendous amount of pent-up demand. There were so many more tech entrepreneurs in town than we had even encountered. And so quickly we decided to renovate the entire building, make it the best place for entrepreneurs to succeed. And the next thing you know, we had this beacon of light for the Atlanta tech startup community.
Yeah, 2020, a lot of people were expecting this to be a fantastic year, a year of growth across the board. And then, of course, we've been hit with a number of crises here. You once said to me, entrepreneurs live in the future. That's where they live. They're creative, they're resilient. How do you see that playing out as 2020 expands? What are some things that are maybe on the horizon that Atlanta has a particular opportunity to excel at?
So if we think about how our lives have changed just in the past 90 days, think about things like telemedicine, right? Telemedicine had been talked about for a decade plus, but had never really gotten its bearings. And now a tremendous number of people have already experienced telemedicine firsthand, both the pros and the cons. Atlanta is already one of the strongest health IT capitals in the country. We have a number of excellent companies and startups here. And so that's an example, telemedicine, that just by having millions of people experience it for the first time, it opens up new opportunities. It opens up different ideas around how to make it better. And so look for Atlanta to continue to grow in the health IT area, and look for COVID-19 to really be an accelerant on the telemedicine front.
Atlanta has a really strong Black tech founder community. In light of everything that's going on here in the metro area, across the country, and really across the world, what do you see as an opportunity to continue to help Black entrepreneurs, Black technology entrepreneurs grow and expand here?
So at the Atlanta Tech Village, we've run a program for a number of years now called the It Takes a Village Pre-Accelerator. And so it's a program exclusively for underrepresented founders. What we found was that there was an opportunity to really dig in, to provide coaching and mentoring, and really work to help grow the community. We have so many amazing, talented Black founders in Atlanta. We have schools like Georgia Tech and Morehouse. Georgia Tech graduates more African American engineers than any school in the country. And so we have a number of amazing people. We want to really help facilitate the entrepreneurial side of the African American tech startup community. And we're doing that, and we've been doing that for years through our It Takes a Village Pre-Accelerator program. But we're really optimistic.
How optimistic are you about the next decade of technology growth here in Metro Atlanta as we look ahead 10 years? What's your outlook?
So Atlanta has what we call growth stage startups, a number of growth stage startups. These are companies that have been started in the past 5 or 10 years. They're doing millions of dollars of revenue. They have hundreds of employees. They've raised tens of millions of dollars of venture capital. And so the next wave that I'm really optimistic about is the exits, the acquisitions, when these startups are bought by an acquirer or they go public. And so it's a process that's going to create more wealth and more angel investors. It's going to help provide funding for the next generation of entrepreneurs in Atlanta. So we have a tremendous amount of success stories, and we need those success stories to turn into exits so that there's liquidity, so that there's cash to fund the next generation.
Well, David, why is Atlanta such a good metro area for startups? And why are you optimistic about the future growth of that sector?
In my college dorm room, I had started a software company up in North Carolina, and our biggest customer that we signed while I was in my dorm room was headquartered in Atlanta. So I graduated, most of my friends went to New York or California. I moved to Atlanta to be in the office with my largest customer. And so by sitting next to that customer, I was able to understand their needs, their business, things they were trying to do better than any other way. We have so much industry here. And as a software company, one of the best things that I found is being as close to the customer as possible. So Atlanta having so many potential customers makes it one of the best places to start a software company.
Not only was that true when you came to Atlanta, but more companies are moving to the metro area, large companies as well. So I can see where that would continue.
Exactly. So we like to say in the startup world, nothing happens until something is sold. you got to sell somebody, you got to sell something, you got to get a contract, you got to get something signed. And so by having so many great companies already here, so many more companies relocating and moving here, it just gives the perfect growing ground for startups. So we're really optimistic about growing the startup community because we have so many ready customers in our backyard.
To that end, a lot of customers, but I'm wondering at the other end of the spectrum, so to speak, what about tech talent? How is Atlanta faring with providing the necessary talent to create startups and also to fill some of the other tech jobs that are out there?
Atlanta's been incredible on the talent front. Obviously, we have great homegrown universities, UGA, Georgia State, Morehouse, Spelman. Of course, Georgia Tech is the anchor on the tech side. And so we have all these great universities, but also being the capital of the Southeast, we attract so many millennials. If you look at any of the data sources about the influx of people to the region, we've had hundreds of thousands of millennials move to Atlanta over the past decade. And so on the talent front, especially for tech companies, Atlanta is just a tremendous place to build a startup.
Are there certain sectors within the startup community where we're seeing a lot of growth or opportunity? So for example, is it software or is it business to business? Where are we seeing the most opportunities for growth here in Atlanta?
So Atlanta is really strong in several tech sectors already. So I mentioned health IT earlier. So we have a tremendous number of health IT companies and very large outposts of companies like McKesson has a large facility here in Atlanta. But some of the other areas that we're really strong at, logistics, right? So think of Delta, think of UPS, and then think of all the different technologies and software companies needed to support them. And then there's other areas that are up and coming. We have a strong cryptocurrency community. So think of the blockchain, think of some of the more future technologies around that. And then we have a strong marketing technology community. So MailChimp is one of our most successful software companies in Atlanta and across the country. And so they deliver email marketing software as well as a marketing stack on top of that. So MarTech is an area that we're really optimistic about as well.
David, thank you so much for joining us and continued success through the next decade and beyond.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor. And as you can tell, I'm very optimistic about the future of Atlanta.
Thank you, David and Crystal. In this next conversation, I had the pleasure of connecting virtually with Matt Bronfman. Matt is the principal and CEO of Jamestown Properties. He has 25 years experience in real estate and has led the acquisition, redevelopment, and oversight for projects including Chelsea Market in New York City, Ponce City Market in Atlanta, Industry City in Brooklyn, the Innovation and Design Building in Boston, and Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco. Matt Bronfman, Jamestown Properties, Ponce City Market, the story of the decade for Atlanta Business Chronicle. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. This is an incredible honor that's really owned by a lot of people. But this is incredible. The Business Chronicle, getting this from the Business Chronicle is fantastic, and we're really honored.
Well, it was fun for us to select both Ponce City Market and the Beltline, two stories that sort of go hand in hand in many ways. When you think about when this whole project started, what were you thinking? What was the architecture around taking what was an abandoned City Hall East and turning it into probably the most successful retail concept we have in Atlanta?
I think there were a few things. One is, again, I would emphasize this project as a partnership, and the Beltline, the potential that we saw in the Beltline was an incredible catalyst for us to go forward. We believed in the transformative impact the Beltline could have on Atlanta. And so really this award is shared with everybody who made the Beltline a reality. And we believed in it, we helped nurture it, and it's an incredible partnership we've had with the Beltline. The other incredible partnership we had that made this deal possible is the public-private partnership with the City of Atlanta. Through working with us on zoning, permitting, recruiting tenants, at every step of the way we structured the transaction, the city was truly our partner. And I can't say enough good things about everybody from the mayor to the planning department. This was really a team effort, and we would not be here without them.
And it's such a unique type of property. Atlanta's really never had anything like it. What do you think is the magic that, in terms of when you experience Ponce City Market and you come onto the property, what do you think is the magic that makes it work?
Say a few things. One is it's a special building. We have really great bones. Atlanta has a history of tearing down a lot of its old structures and replacing them with new sort of vanilla buildings. And this is a really special building. The second thing is we took this special building and I think we created something that we like to say really surprises and delights the consumer. Mm-hmm. You want to go around the corner and peek at what's coming next. And we think that's so important today. How do you surprise and delight the consumer so that you get them out of their pajamas where they can do their shopping, they can work at their home office. And so we thought it was imperative that we create something that that would really engage the consumer.
And so going forward, where do you see Ponce City Market going as a project over time? I feel like you got to an amazing start, and now you continue to try to refine and bring on new retail concepts. Where do you see it eventually moving over the next 10 years?
We believe that these sort of projects, they age really well. This building has aged well over 100 years. And if you do a brand new building, that's often the highest, the most valuable that building's ever going to be with a new building is when you deliver it. It's sort of like somebody on their wedding date or driving a new car off the showroom. That's the best, that's the most valuable it's ever going to be. Ponce City Market is more like that antique car that can actually appreciate over time. And that's up to us to continue to make it a community hub, an innovation hub. We're also fortunate that it's in a diverse neighborhood, and that diversity of the neighborhood contributes to the greatness of Ponce. And we also have to continue to surprise and delight in new ways. And we need to always have a lot of local consumers. I'm a real believer that if all you have is nationals, you're not going to be compelling enough. But we firmly believe that that's part of our role as a community hub, to have that place where people can come in and just browse. We're always going to have a lot of benches, a lot of places to sit, public art exhibits, things like that, because we want to see ourselves as the equivalent of that Main Street community hub.
Well, you talk about community. 2020 has been undoubtedly the most bizarre, strange, awful year we've had, probably in your and my lifetime, on so many different fronts, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's all the social unrest in the streets. Tell me what it's been like for Ponce City Market, for Jamestown, for you, and how you've tried to address that over the last couple of months, and how do you see it coming out of it?
This has been a hard time for us. We do projects where we want people to linger longer, where we want people to come and stay for an extended period. That's the antithesis of where we are in the world in the COVID era. And so we've had to quickly adopt. The good news is we have a really good team. We are what I call a vertically integrated operator of real estate. And so we have internal people coming up with ways to help our property adopt. Right when everything turned sour with COVID, we set up a tenant portal so that we helped our tenants figure out how to apply for PPP loans. We helped them figure out how to do more pickup and delivery options. We really see ourselves as in partnership with our tenants. We set up a $50 million fund to help our property, to help our tenants out, to help them figure out how to reposition, how to change their business model, how to adopt. And I think that's been really, really important to getting our tenants up and operating again.
And when you think about the projects you do, yes, Ponce City Market is the one that sort of has put Jamestown on the map in many ways in Atlanta, but you actually have a presence in a lot of other very important projects, both on the west side, in Sandy Springs, in Buckhead, throughout Atlanta. First of all, what has Ponce City Market taught you that you've been able to apply to some of those other projects, and where do you see those projects going?
I think one thing we've learned time and time again is the importance of curating local as well as national tenants. Mm-hmm. And two, having diverse tenants, speaking to different demographics, different types of people. You can't be monolithic in the 21st century. You have to appeal to diversity. And I think the other thing we've learned is how to use color and aesthetics and other things to, again, surprise, delight, get the customer involved, make the customers feel bought into the projects. One of the things I'm most proud of Ponce is the community that shops here really feels like they are part of Ponce, that they feel some sense of almost ownership, if you will, in the project. And having that connection to your tenants, to your customers, that's part of what we've always been about. We look at our broader stakeholders as our tenants, our customers, our employees, and trying to do things that everybody feels proud of, that everybody is a part of.
Matt Bronfman, congratulations again on Ponce City Market in Jamestown. Great 10 years, and thank you for being part of a decade of growth.
Thank you.
Well, next, I have the opportunity to talk with Jerome Russell, president of H.J. Russell & Company. The firm has had a hand in building or providing program management services for some of the most iconic buildings in the Atlanta skyline. Jerome is currently leading the initiative of turning the 504 Fair Street building into the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Honoring the legacy and visionary leadership of his father, the Russell Center will be the largest center in the country devoted to empowering African American entrepreneurs and small business owners. Well, Jerome Russell, thank you so much for being a part of our decade of growth as we look back on business over the past 10 years. Thanks for being here. You know, as I think back to the past 10 years, I know for you all, it's been bittersweet, you know, in the terms of the passing of your father, tremendous loss for the city, but obviously huge for you all personally and for the company as well. How would you characterize the past decade?
Let's say from 2010 to up to maybe 2013, we were still feeling the recession. My father had developed a lot of product in Castleberry Hill, and we were still working our way out of things. 2013, 2014, that's when things really started to pick up for us. That's when Mercedes-Benz Stadium was we had been awarded the contract for Mercedes-Benz. So my father knew there was something about to go in Castleberry Hill right before he passed. And we also was successful around that same time in winning the contract to do the museum in DC. I started seeing that Atlanta was evolving as a different city. And I call it a city of districts that were starting to evolve, like the Georgia Tech research area. You had Ponce City Market evolving. You had West Midtown that was evolving. Old Fourth Ward was starting to take off. And it validated that Castleberry Hill is and would continue to be a district. And that's when we started focusing more around in-town opportunities.
You know, there's hardly a place in this city that you can look at the skyline and not say H.J. Russell & Company had a part in this project or a part in this building. Talk a little bit about how important that legacy is, not just for you personally, but also for the company.
Well, you know, it feels great. The city has been the heart of our business, the city of Atlanta, the airport, both from a construction standpoint and also an airport concession standpoint. The airport is the rock solid component of what we have been a part of. And it also is what Atlanta stands for, largest airport in the world, Delta Airlines, et cetera. So we've been blessed with that. And the other big blessing for us has been the vision of my father buying and committing to that Castleberry Hill area. That's going to be the real legacy. Really, when we look back 50 years from now, 100 years from now, is him planting the seed in Castleberry Hill in 1952.
I'm wondering, are there lessons that maybe you learned from your father or just from the legacy of H.J. Russell & Company that is helping you drive the conversation around diversity and inclusion as it relates to the real estate sector?
So around 2014, 2015, hey, we said we're going to do an innovation entrepreneur center around Black business formation, Black entrepreneurship. And we started just going around the United States. I was in New Orleans, and there was a concept that had corporate sponsors. It was like, wow, they can get corporate sponsors in New Orleans. I mean, we can blow it out in Atlanta. So I ended up hiring the guy as a consultant that ran it. And that's when we came up with the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And kind of finished around late 2018. We opened it up. We had, right before COVID, we were running 1,000 people a week were coming through. We had entrepreneurs. We had all sorts of groups coming through to look at it. And we hadn't even finished the building. So boom, COVID happens. And we're like, wow, this is needed more than ever now. There are multiple discussions that are going on from, health inequalities. We have economic inequalities. We have inequalities in the education system. So we're going to be the pathway for economic inequality, and we're going to pivot. When I say pivot, we're just going to accelerate our initiatives, and we're going to form some real strategic partnerships and become the place to really change the platform around Black business formation, readiness of African-American businesses, access to opportunities, a place to come as a safe haven. So we got to lead this movement on multiple fronts.
Well, it sounds like, Atlanta is ripe for that right now, really being a hub for Black startup organizations and Black entrepreneurship. And as I think about even the history of H.J. Russell and Company, there are a lot of real estate companies and real estate related businesses that came through H.J. Russell and Company, and then they started their own firm. So this is kind of in your DNA, if you will.
It's it. This is who we are. And all of those individuals, from Egbert Perry to T. Dallas Smith, Noel Khalil, Art Clement, Artis Johnson, the list goes on. I probably may have left somebody out. They are all in on this because we realize that we have to grow our businesses because there's going to be a high probability you're going to give someone that looks like you an opportunity if you have a thriving and growing business. I think we're at this real unique point where we got to move and put systemic programs in place to deal with this. And we have to lead. It has to be, I just keep saying that this is the place, Atlanta, Georgia is the place for it to happen. And then once we get it going, it will become a model for the rest of the nation. And in the corporations here, whether it's, I could start naming Delta, UPS, so on and so on. They, I think, recognize all of this. And we're really, really excited about being able to be a part of it.
Before we wrap up, I've got to ask you, where do you see the company going in the next 10 years, the next decade?
So on the construction side, I think you will continue to see us expand in different product types and finding certain niches and bringing value from there versus just a generalist. So I think we'll become a more specialized company in that area. And I think the big thing you're going to see around real estate is the partnerships around capital and Black business formation. So kind of ties in with the Russell Center, but because, we are real estate based, and that's one of the ways of wealth accumulation, whether you own a home, owning other buildings, that you'll see real creativity and some real interesting things evolve from the real estate side also.
Well, I look forward to seeing all of that come to fruition. Jerome Russell, thank you so much for joining us as we look back at the decade of growth.
Thank you.
Amazing work by Jerome Russell and the H.J. Russell Company. In our final conversation, I connected with Jill SAVITT. Jill is the president and CEO of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. The center is housed in a striking lens-shaped building in downtown, opened in 2014. Jill has spent her career as a human rights advocate. Prior to her appointment at the center's helm, she was acting director at the Center for Prevention of Genocide at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. In 2007, Jill founded Dream for Darfur, a campaign that pressed the Chinese government for a resolution to the Darfur crisis. Jill SAVITT, welcome to Decade of Growth. Congratulations on the Center for Civil and Human Rights being one of our stories of the decade. It really has been a wonderful journey for the center, and welcome to you, but you're not necessarily new to the center since you're being named the executive director.
Yeah, it's actually a decade is my mark. I've been involved with the center for 10 years. In 2010, I got a call that there was this museum, this idea of a museum, Civil and Human Rights Museum in Atlanta, and would I be interested in helping curate the human rights exhibition? And so I said yes, and I have been a huge fan of this place ever since.
So when this whole project started, it was more than just simply the fundraising and the building of a big building. You're taking on a really weighty topic. Tell me, from what you experienced in those early years of watching what was going on, what made it tough, and how did y'all overcome the challenges of building the center?
Yeah, I think it is. When you talk about civil and human rights, you're talking about almost every aspect of life. So the topic is huge, and then launching the construction of a building, a museum, fundraising, all of those challenges is also monumental. And while we're 10 years old, in that period is a recession. So there were huge ambitions for this place where in every instance, both on the building side and on the content side, we had to make choices and adapt and prioritize. And so the building was a little bit smaller than originally intended, and that was about the recession. And then in terms of the topics, we wanted to tell the story of the civil rights movement, which is history, so it's fixed in place. You know the dates and you can tell that story, but you're going to have to leave some things out because the real estate dictates how big the story can be. And so difficult choices were made about what's in and what's out in terms of the storytelling. And on the human rights side, where do you start? We had to arbitrarily pick a time. We couldn't go back into so far in history. So we started with World War II and the founding of the United Nations to start telling the story of the global human rights movement.
Well, you couldn't have picked a better location for it. Being in downtown Atlanta with all the activity that was going on, luckily, not only were y'all succeeding in your early years of coming out of the ground, but you had all these other programs going on around you that allowed visitors to know you were there and attract the attention to it. You have other programs involved at the center that people may not be as familiar with.
Yeah, I think this is the only city that a museum like this could exist in. In fact, we're the only one like us, one that takes on history and then shows its relevance to the world today. And then on top of that, of course, we also have the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. papers and artifacts. And this is really the only permanent place that has a rotating exhibition of the speeches, books, artifacts, personal belongings of King that you could come and press your nose up against the glass and see. So we are able to take all of that and then connect it to today, because everything we're experiencing today with systemic racism and all of the issues that are so on our minds right now with police brutality all have a through line through history. And Atlanta, as the birthplace of the civil rights movement and the birthplace of Dr. King, is really the place that can say all of these things are interconnected. And we can tell one story that if we're honest about our history, we can see how it comes to these issues today. And so the center takes on LGBTQ rights and human trafficking and health and human rights. And it's responding on police brutality and diversity and inclusion in the workplace, because all of these issues sprout up in all of these different places. And we're able to take this grounding in history and relate it to our lives today.
So, one of the things we've been writing about at the Chronicle now for the last couple of months is how businesses have to figure out a way to pivot to what's going on in today, whether it's COVID-19 related or whether it's social justice issues related, or the two together. Tell me how the center has addressed that. You started talking about that, but I want to hear a little bit more about how y'all are addressing the current needs. You can't have people physically on your campus right now, so you've had to find other ways. Tell me about the ways you had to reach out.
Yeah, it's related to a larger issue for the center. So this is the past decade we're looking at, which has the germ of the idea. And then we've been open six years, right? We've just had our 6th anniversary. And when I came on just over a year ago, the big strategic focus that our team is now looking at is how do we take what has been an Atlanta attraction and convert it into a human and civil rights institution? What would that mean? So that we don't just want people to come and see our exhibitions and maybe have a conversation about them and leave. We want people to be connected to us throughout their life cycle. So we are adding all kinds of things to the center to turn it into this institution. Part of that is also taking issues that come at us as they do in the world today, linking them to the past and giving people the tools and skills and resources they need to address those issues and understand them today.
So let's talk about the future now. It's kind of hard to talk about the future right now because there's so much uncertainty in the world around everything when it comes to health and society and all the things that have been going on. But obviously we all have to look out for the next 10 years. Tell me what you want to see some of the headlines be for the center over the next 10 years. I know there's the plan for the expansion, but there's also this virtual expansion that you've already started talking about. What are some of the things that are on your plate that you want to see get accomplished?
You know, if anything, a silver lining of COVID is how it has allowed us to expand our ambition about the center. So we have launched a capital campaign. We do want to build 2 new wings. One will be conference space, classrooms for training, and the other will be new gallery space and a cafe, and most importantly, a family center. So those are key things that are crucial to our vision of this space being throughout someone's lifetime. Right now, we don't serve families with kids under 12. Right. And for those in Atlanta who know, we are on a plaza that serves that population very specifically with the World of Coca-Cola Museum and the aquarium. And so we have people right outside our door who might not feel inclined to come in because we're not serving that young population. So our family center will use arts and music to teach young kids about citizenship. So and civic life and human rights and democracy, freedom, and how all those things relate in a really kid-friendly way. So that's one place that we want to build and grow all of our programming in the physical world, in the real world, and online. And then this conference space is critical because the most important thing that we can do after a visit to the center is have a conversation about what people learn. That seals in the learning in a very specific way to re-articulate what you've just heard.
Congratulations to you and in the center, and we're so happy to have you, Jill SAVITT, in Atlanta. We're so lucky to have you at such an important time, both for the center and for our city and for our community, and continued success. And I can't wait to see what the next 10 years holds for the center going forward.
Thank you. We are so proud to be a part of this decade look back. And we do feel that Atlanta is behind us. The city has been the wind in our sails all along. The people in the city, the leadership of the city, the businesses in the city, the media in the city. And so we can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much to all our guests for providing us with an insider's perspective on these pivotal stories in Atlanta's past decade. Congratulations again to all our newsmakers, and especially those from the top 10 list. It really is an impressive list of stories, and as I said earlier, they represent such a large range of topics and demonstrate the growth of Atlanta since 2010. I also want to thank my co-host, Crystal Edmondson. Crystal, you've just launched a brand new podcast. Can you tell everyone about it for a second?
Sure, David. This has been fun. The podcast is called It's Complicated, Doing Business During Coronavirus. I think we can all attest to that. It airs every week. You can tune in on iTunes or Spotify.
Thanks again to all our sponsors, JLL, Proof of the Pudding, and Zoo Atlanta, Active Production, Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and all our VIP sponsors. And lastly, I want to thank all of you who joined us for our virtual event. The pandemic has had a far-reaching impact on all of us, not just in Atlanta. And we all are learning new ways to deliver important content for our audiences. While we all hope to be back in person when it's safe, for now, we are excited that we can bring you events like this with the assistance of technology. I hope you'll join us for our next virtual event, 50 on Fire, on August 6th. Until then, stay safe.
See ya.